Welcome back to Jersey Real Estate Insights. Join us to uncover the top questions every buyer should ask before purchasing flipped home. Today, I have a special guest here with me, Ashley Molson, an experienced real estate attorney who will guide us through the process of finding a perfect home and making sure that all legal aspects are covered. Hi, Ashley. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So let's dive right in. Many of our buyers have this question: what's the difference between gut renovation or new construction home?
That's such a good question because a lot of times when a property is flipped, they think, oh, it's new construction, but there is a difference. So technically the difference is new construction is a property that is built on land and built from the ground up with a new foundation or an actual foundation installed. When you have a renovation, you're taking an existing structure and you're either renovating parts of it, or you may even take it all the way down to the actual foundation and then build upon it. So really what it comes down to is, are you adding foundation to land, or are you doing a renovation on top of existing foundation? Existing foundations that's where you get into renovations. And then if you're putting foundation on land and you're starting from basically bare land, that would be considered new construction.
Absolutely. What types of issues usually arise when buyers purchase homes that are renovated, not the ones that are brand new construction?
Yeah, lots of things can come up with renovated properties, and it can stem from a few different avenues. So one of the avenues is the investor who came and who did the flip. They may have only done cosmetic renovations. So they didn't adjust things like the electrical, the plumbing. And if the electrical and plumbing are really old, you could have an expectation that everything in the house is new, but really it's just the fridge, the stove, the paint and the cosmetic things. So you have to have a full inspection as if it was a home that was built when the original structure was built, which could be the 1920s or even earlier in time. Then you have considerations like taxes. So a lot of times investors are purchasing properties that are flipped from an existing structure that has a tax assessed value that's much less than with the renovations. So as a buyer, you have to prepare yourself for those taxes to increase in the future. And you may not have the clarity that you need when you're buying the property, but asking the question to get as much information as possible is really important. And then you're also going to come up against possible disclosure issues where the investor may not know everything about the property because they haven't lived there. So you really, really have to rely on your due diligence.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great information. Let's move on to the next point that many of buyers are concerned: post-closing issues. What type of post-closing issues can arise that buyers should be aware of?
So the first and foremost is, and I like to call them post-closing gifts, right? Just reframe a little bit. It could, because you are buying your dream home, right? But owning property can come with a lot of different issues, but we call them gifts because it's a privilege to go through that process and to have these situations arise for you. So that's just a unique perspective that I have. But as I mentioned, the taxes in the prior question, the taxes won't likely increase until some further time in the future when the township actually comes and does their inspection of the property, which is usually triggered by the CO being issued. You also have, with any property that you buy, issues that could come up with basically like the condition of the home. There could be an area of the home that the investor didn't do work on. And with a renovated property versus like a new construction, you're not getting the privilege of the new builder's home warranty, which comes with new construction homes as per law in New Jersey. So really you're taking on ownership of all of the issues that come with the property post-closing. My goal during real estate transactions is to help you make sure that you're minimizing the risks of post-closing issues coming up. So we try to do that during the transaction, thinking of it beyond the closing, like what could happen, So that's the goal, but there could always be, with the homeownership, it's like you're driving your car and all of a sudden the check engine light goes on. You just don't know, when it's going to happen.
Yes, and doing due diligence right before everything happens makes it so much easier.
Yes.
Why investors sometimes are so pushy with the sale of their flipped property?
Yeah, they can be really pushy with wanting things to be done quickly, as the property being sold in the most as-is condition possible. They are doing this for a multitude of reasons. One is most investors are purchasing properties to flip with hard money loans. Those hard money loans, unlike the regular mortgages that a buyer is taking out for residential purposes, have higher interest rates. And they also have more money out than what they purchased the property for, because they likely finance some of the construction. So every single day, per day, the cost of owning the property and just holding on to it is increasing and eating into their bottom line. Secondly, is if the investor went in and they did a lot of renovations, they took a lot of time and effort to go through the property and make changes, they don't want the buyers to be nitpicking all these little minuscule issues. They can tend to be open to the larger ones, but since they've already spent, a lot of money on their renovations, and depending on if they maxed out their budget, they could have more of a aggressive attitude towards handling inspection issues. So it depends on the personality of the investor, where they were at with their budget, and what's going on with their hard money loans. But that tends to be why there's pressure, rather than just your regular seller who maybe, has they're good with the 60-day close. The investor wants to get it done as quick as possible.
Thank you so much for clarifying, because yes, it does help to our buyers have this information, because many times they feel pressured. But you explained that very nicely, that it can just be they want to close quickly because they have that big interest right on them, and they want to make sure that they can close on time and no further delays can hold that property, because also sometimes they move on to a different project. They want to finish this project so they can start the other project. Not necessarily that there is something wrong with the house, because sometimes that's what we get, right? When the investor is pushy and we're bringing that information back to the client, they feel, oh, maybe there is something wrong, that's why they're pushy. But not necessarily there's something wrong, because it can be just the timing for them.
So when you hear the word investor without the context, from the actual story of what's going on with the investor, the image that you get in your head is, oh, they're sitting on top of a lot of money, or, they're just sitting pretty, they finished the project, and why are they being so pushy? It's because they're so mean and aggressive. And that can be a challenge in real estate transactions, because sellers and buyers they're bifurcated from each other. So to understand each other's story and what's going on behind the scenes is really helpful. And giving buyers that understanding, no, they're not doing this because of you. It's not personal. It's a business decision for them. And like you mentioned, they may have another project they want to get started. All of their money could be out on the street, they say. That's the term they use. And once they close is when they can recoup it. And also when the final closing disclosure comes out on the ALTA statement, typically, the buyers, they can always see what the seller's netting, but that's never the true picture of what the seller actually spent, the investor spent to flip the property. It's just good to keep in mind, they might not really be, profiting as much as you think they are.
That's great to know. Thank you so much for that information. Most of the time, buyers, when they see the home that it's totally remodeled, it's, newer home, they want to save the money for the inspection, and they don't want to do an inspection. They just say, okay, we'll go whatever the seller's disclosure gives us, and that's enough information. From the legal perspective, What is your view on this?
I have a very, very hard stance on this, so I'm glad that you brought it up. The home inspections are so important, and especially with flipped properties, but even new construction, anytime. Like my firm actually has a hard rule: we will not represent buyers who waive their home inspections, and the reason for that is because you can't take the seller's word for what they're disclosing. Their attorneys are often putting into the contract terms like, my seller is making any representation to the best of their knowledge, but it should not be relied upon. Of course, like if there's something that's being fraudulently stated, that's a whole different story. But if the seller really is like, to the best of my knowledge, there was no water penetration here, right? The only way to really know what's going on in that property is with an inspection. And when you are making such a large purchase, especially on a renovated property, you don't really know all the work the seller did, and the investor isn't going to have all the paperwork that they can provide you to show you all the work that they did. So have that home inspection, make sure that you're having a professional go in and look at all the different areas of the home so that you can have the opportunity to back out of the contract before you actually, own it. Because backing out of a contract is a lot easier than being stuck with something that you then have to sell. So empower yourself. Without the inspection, you're literally going in blind. Like, would you buy a car without seeing it?
No. So why would you buy a house without having it inspected? Right? Yeah, you wouldn't, right? I wouldn't. So we can't let our clients do it either. Thank you. Thank you for that. I always advise my clients to do inspection no matter what, even if they're not going to ask anything from the seller to fix or any credit. It's always good to know where you're going into. It's better to understand, okay, there are some issues, then I'm okay with that. I'll handle it later. Than just buy it without knowing and, have all the surprises later on.
Yeah, and I understand the pressure because it's so competitive right now. And the moment another buyer comes along who is willing to waive the inspection, the seller's likely going to go with that offer. But given the amount of money you're going to be spending to buy the property, it's not worth. Like, we consider that a like to selling your soul. Like, it's not worth it. And you can work with your attorney to structure how you can sweeten the terms where you can still have your diligence and protect yourself. You can, you can tell the seller, oh, I'm only canceling if there's a major environmental concern, versus just having an inspection and being able to cancel for any reason at all. So you can work with, your agent and your attorney to maybe help you provide an offer to the seller before attorney review that can compete. So we've had a lot of situations where agents will bring the clients to us before they even make an offer, so that the language that's in the contract doesn't have to be changed in attorney review with respect to the inspections, and that has helped a lot.
Wow, love that, because that will save so much time and effort for our buyers, and they will be more easier to accept what's in that contract. They will understand that it's legally correct to say the specifically terms and it's acceptable. That will make their life so much easier.
Oh yeah, and the sellers too, because they won't feel like bait and switched, like there's something in the offer and then all of a sudden the attorney swoops in and changes it. So it's really, it's helped a lot. And we started doing that during COVID, and we haven't changed it because the competition is still fierce.
But that's a great advice to buyers to, right from the beginning, whatever concerns you have, get an advice from an attorney so you don't go attorney review. You win this home through multiple offer situation. You start the process and then suddenly you don't want to continue because there's a term that it wasn't clear for you before you sign.
Yeah.
So it will save so much time and energy and money for the buyer if they start consulting with an attorney before, putting that offer in.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ashley, for this great information. I'm sure many of our buyers will benefit from getting a legal advice from you and starting from a great perspective of what to expect when the time comes for the attorney review, under contract, and post-closing issues.
Thank you again for having me today. My name is Ashley Molson. I am the owner of Molson Law Firm, LLC. I'm a real estate attorney practicing all over New Jersey. We handle transactions everywhere. We represent buyers, sellers, and investors. The best way to reach out to me is to send me an email at Ashley, ASHLEY, at Molson, MOLSON, lawfirm.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at realestatelawNJ. I post there a lot, so feel free to give me a follow.
As we conclude our interview with Ashley Molson, an experienced real estate attorney, we're hoping that this information will help you to find that perfect dream home and know what to expect and use this information for your benefit. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and follow us on our other social platforms. Remember, knowledge is power, and we're here to help you.